Star by Yukio Mishima, one of my favorites from him so far. It is a 90-page novella, short story, whatever you want to call it, because it was originally supposed to be with two other short stories, but I didn't, because I don't know fucking why. We fucking decided to separate three short stories supposed to go together. Um, it's pretty much just about Mishima's experiences in his first ever starring role, and pretty much why he fucking hates it. It was a very telling thing about dealing with perfectionist directors, and pretty much why no one wants to fucking deal with them. It was a mentally and physically devastating thing to Mishima, and he kind of maybe didn't want to do film after that point. I believe he did star in something else after that, but I think it was from most of his plays, in fact. It is, for being 90 pages, it does a lot in such a minimum amount of time, which kind of makes me mad at a lot of books now. I think it's really telling with Mishima that he's able to pack so much within 90 pages and tell so much about common motifs in his work, like, sex, sex in general, sexuality, homosexuality, what it means to be human, depression, suicide, nations, what it means to be the concept of identity, how that relates to us as the consciousness, what it means, etc. Perhaps it's a bit too much me digging into it for the themes. Perhaps it's me just kind of associating Mishima's later works with his earlier works, because it certainly is an early work, because there's a lot of the motifs and setups he has later on that I think are explored better in his later pieces that are just sort of hinted at here to an almost kind of disappointing extent, but it's 90 pages. I'm not sitting like, fucking see your fertility levels of depth when it comes to detailing stories. But when it comes to Star, it was very much telling of how Mishima thinks on a person, because he was pretty much thinking of killing himself during supposedly the production, because it's obviously introducing what is pretty much out of left field for the main character essentially thinking of suicide, which was very much a dark turn. It was literally came out of nowhere, but I guess it's sort of the case that if you reread it, you'll notice the hints a lot more. Because it's very telling the fact that he sort of puts on a facade that he's very confident, that he's very glorious, that he's like, oh yeah, I'm a sex maniac, and this and that. Even though in reality, he's just kind of doesn't really understand who he is as a person anymore. Because even as a celebrity, he sort of just feels disconnected from people. He doesn't really feel anything anymore. He's pretty much putting on the facade for what he wants in society. He puts on the facade for himself. He puts on the facade for society. He puts on the facade for so much whatever people, and it gets to the point to where he kind of doesn't understand who he is anymore. It's literally a commentary on, like, the one does the actor no longer act. Because pretty much no matter how we want to look at it, an actor is putting up an identity for the public because he doesn't want people to see really who he is as an individual. There certainly are probably exceptions in reality. Like, I probably would say Robin Williams and Henry Cavill were kind of cheery people in reality, which even then it kind of provides some interesting things. Like, we understood that these were probably good people. We just didn't see how they were in there inside, which is probably one of the things that Mishima want to talk about. We don't really know the actor, yet we have a glamorous fantasization of a person. And even if we were to tell them, you were my idol, you're my romanticist, it sort of comes into the end of the story where the main character has a realization that everyone's really put on a role. Even his own personal assistant, someone who's like very much direct and blunt about who she is as an individual, is sort of providing commentary on, we don't really know who one another is. We don't really know what that person is thinking. We don't know what they act. We don't even know if they're being real with us, even when they're saying they're being real. How do they know they're being real with themselves if they can't even be real with the people they trust? And it seems that even here, it seems that the main character, even when he has an idol, he sort of begins to realize even the people that I've idolized and wanted to be like, have started to just vanish and fade. They're not real. I'm not real. Who am I? What is a star? He's just that. And I think that's currently one of the reasons why the novel was named Star. It's because when you look on when you look on a star, you do that. You gaze upon a star. You don't know what that star is. It could be a planet. It could be one of the suns. It could be anything you know, and you don't know what it is. You just know that's a star, and it's kind of just the individual. You have the identity. You don't have the real depth to it. You have the face value. And maybe that's a bit too much analysis for this work, because admittedly, this is one of the weakest works of Mishima, but it's so fucking good. And it's really telling when his work, what's widely considered one of his, like, it's fine, it's not one of his best works, is still really fucking good and better than most shit you'll fucking read or watch today. Will it change your life? No, I don't think it will change your life. I would say something like Spring Snow has better commentary on what it means to what your identity means in the grand scope of history. But even then, stuff like the Sea of Fertility are more commentary on Mishima's actions for when he inevitably attempted to overthrow the Japanese government and commit seppuku. There's differences. There's different identities here when it comes to his work. For this one, it's very early on. I don't think he was really planning to do what he did back then, but I'm not Mishima, and that's exactly the thing. I have an identity of what Mishima is as a person. I don't really know what he was thinking. And I think that kind of reinforces it, like the fear of people placing identity on themselves. Because that's another recurring thing. It's people, sort of the populace, putting an identity for the main character, and sort of, how interchangeable he is between his personalities, how he's able to shift, and how people are able to shift whatever identity they desire. With other people, he's typically closed off. With people he knows, he's not really as closed off, but he's very insulting, he's very cynical. Other people put him beside being a playboy, when in reality he's really not. He's kind of not interested in even women. And in fact, it's kind of even hinted at that from towards the ending, that he's potentially bi, because he's very much going into the description about how beautiful, how handsome, how attractive this man is, how even with the flaws, he still finds him very attractive. I think he even refers to him as sexy. I'm unsure, but I know the word handsome is used. And it's sort of like identity, like he truly does not know who he is, because he's sleeping with women. He's very much attracted to women, but it's very clear that not even he's self-aware, which plays into the theme of identity, what it means to be human, essentially. And I think that might have been sort of hinting towards Mishima himself having potentially depression, but again, I can't speak for Mishima. I have an idea of what he is. And I think that's a very interesting thing to note. How we as people are, what the idea of entity is, and sort of how interchangeable consciousness is as a whole. It's a very interesting thing to analyze, and I gotta say, for being 90 pages, it really did make me think a lot. It's able to dissect a lot, and it's really telling of how he is as a person. It's very much just how he's able to deliberately choose his words, his themes, certain scenes. You think, oh, what's this scene point? What's the point of this scene? You would think it's just to tell the narrative, but in reality, it has a grander scheme, grander purpose to it, and that's one of the reasons I love Mishima, and why I always will use him as an example of what it means to be a good author. If you want to read some of his other works, I would recommend Confessions of a Mask. I do recommend Star. If there were any flaws, it does feel a bit disjointed. It's more stream of consciousness than anything else, so there's not going to be very much a cohesive narrative. It's very much a person living in the life, so nothing really technically happens. It's just things happen. It's supposed to be more or less realistic, a reflection of life. So don't go in expecting, like fucking crazy shit that happens in Spring Snow or Runaway Horses, which has literal fucking rebellions going on. Might spoil there. Might have spoiled Runaway Horses. But you won't have the context for what I mean. It's really good. If there was any flaws, the pacing's a bit weird, it's disconjointed, but those are purposeful. There's a reason in the narrative for them. Will everyone enjoy it? No, it's 90 pages. You're paying $11 for it. Probably could buy a used copy from fucking Amazon and you're good. Or better yet, buy short stories to get better taste. Read Confessions of a Mask. Read Colors. I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. The name's hard for me to remember. Read The Sea of Fertility. Spring Snow especially. Spring Snow is fucking wonderful. I wanted to say this is off script, so it's very rambly, it's not very cohesive, but I really will get more videos out that are done in a more tightly done manner. I will be releasing some unbridled praises on the Wheel Time series for each book. And as you could tell, with series rife with foreshadowing and symbolism, that's gonna take fucking forever. I will be releasing some Goblin Slayer videos when I get around to it. talking about it because it's one of my favorites. I'll talk about Buffy. I'll be talking about Angel. I'll be talking about pretty much anything. I'll talk about anything I enjoy. If you got any recommendations that I want me to talk about, just leave in the comment section below. I'll try to get as many videos done as possible. These will be in sort of in betweens as I work on the bigger projects. And hopefully I'll get a better mic soon enough, because this mic is not the best. It's weird. It captures things I don't want it to capture, and it makes my voice sound very, very different from how it actually does sound. So if you for some reason enjoy the content, stick around. Have a wonderful day.